From the notorious criminals of Lego City to skeletons that were actually alive at one point. There's some surprisingly disturbing lore in Lego, so let's jump right in with the skeleton with a red bandana. Since 1997, when the first one was released, Lego's made 2 more versions, and across the board, they've only been in 4 sets. However, the first one was the Buccaneers set, and it kind of confused me at first. In the promo pic for it, the skeleton is standing upright and holding a golden ring, which obviously makes it look like he isn't dead. This was back in 1997, and at first, Lego didn't even want to release skeletons because they thought death and kids' toys shouldn't be mixed. So I kind of took this as Lego softening the blow of skeletons for kids. But they didn't do this for long, because just 1 year later, they released the Flying Ninja Fortress set in the ninja theme, and the ninjas were using this skeleton as a jump scare for a booby trap. You can see on page 8 of the instructions that the wall can flip around to the inside. This is the last time Lego would put this skeleton in a set until 2015, when they made the second version of it with an updated bandana, and the set it was in actually told a mini story. This pirate was following a treasure map on his own in a rowboat. It seems he was able to find the treasure, but when he gets there, he finds a skeleton with their hands on the booty and their weapon drawn. Now, we can make as many theories as we want about this, but what it looks like happened here is the pirate found the treasure, sensed danger, and died. We don't truly know how it went down, but what's even crazier is this was in a junior set. This is a pretty insane 180 from not even wanting to release skeletons. But this is only the second version of this skeleton. The third one is in a way newer set with some pretty serious lore. I'm talking about the remastered El Dorado Fortress set from 2023. The skeleton in this set died a pretty brutal death, and it all has to do with a letter. On page 8 of book 2, you place a letter inside a box and hide it inside what will later be a cave. And there's text that says, "A hidden letter? Whom could it be from? Who can solve this mystery?" There's absolutely no context on this anywhere else in the set, but when you get to page 56 in book 4, you place a skeleton in a pretty tight spot in a cave, and there's text here that says, "How this poor skeleton met his fate is unknown. Perhaps he was trying to escape or went in search of the hidden letter," again implying that this letter is pretty important. Now, I don't know a lot about vintage Lego lore, so I found someone on Eurobricks with the same question as me, and everyone was saying that this letter has no correlation to the original El Dorado Fortress set. Whatever it is though, it must be pretty special, because this skeleton was willing to go into an extremely tight cave to get it, and ended up paying for it with their life. These 4 skeletons all tell unique stories, but because of how many pirates wear a red bandana, it's impossible to narrow down who any of them are, let alone all 4. However, sometimes Lego literally tells us who it is with the name of the minifigure, and the best example of this is in the Hidden Side theme. There's a character in this theme named Douglas Elton, who's a stuntman and a paranormal investigator at the same time. Usually when people die in this theme, it's because they get possessed, but Douglas actually died. There are 3 different skeletons of him in his uniform, and they're all in separate sets, but technically speaking, he isn't exactly dead. He was at first, because he sacrificed himself to stop the main villain of the theme from returning, but somehow he was able to come back as a ghost and possess his own skeleton. So even though he's all bones, he is technically alive. But he isn't the only stuntman with some dark lore, because there's also Chuck D. Goldberg. All that's officially known about him is that he's a stuntman, but in the Shark Attack Stunt Challenge set, he has a treasure chest with a dead minifigure on the side of his stunt. It doesn't really make sense for it to be here, and since Chuck is holding a treasure map in one of the pictures, it led me down a pretty dark rabbit hole. For one, he had to kill sharks and attach them to a crane to make this stunt, which is questionable on its own. But finding treasure and bringing the person who died with it is just downright evil. It's almost like he's bragging that he got the treasure while this person died trying. Unfortunately, 46 different minifigures have worn this hat, so there's no way to know who it is. A lot of you probably think it's a pirate, but that isn't necessarily true. The main people chasing pirates are called Imperial guards, and a lot of them wore this hat, but just because they stop pirates doesn't mean they're good people, and I can prove it with the shipwreck hideout set. This is one of Captain Brickbeard's hideouts, and in my last video, I talked about how the skeleton heads on his desk are probably Imperial guards, but there's way more to this set than just this. From the pictures, it looks like the guards are raiding Brickbeard to try and kill him, but that's not what's going on here. On page 13 of the instructions, there's a comic showing that the guards went for the treasure first. Only after that did everyone start fighting. And yes, I only said this to prove that the skeleton in the Shark Attack stunt set could be anyone. But there's a skeleton in the Shipwreck hideout set too, and I'm almost positive I know exactly who it is. In the instructions, we're told to put the hat on the skeleton with the tube facing forward, and out of the 16 minifigs who wear this hat, the Imperial Governor is the only one that wears it the exact same way, so this skeleton is most likely him. The only holes in my theory is that the skeleton doesn't have the blue feather, and that Brickbeard didn't use his head as a trophy like he did with the others. But this next skeleton is 100% confirmed, and it's in the Pirates of Barracuda Bay set. This one is wearing a black Shako hat, and only Imperialists wear a hat like this. There are 9 of them in total, but to narrow down who it is, we have to pay attention to how LEGO is naming things. According to Brick Economy, this skeleton is an Imperial guard, and if we look at Bricklink to see who wears this hat, only one of them is an Imperial guard. The rest of them are Imperial soldiers. This guy was in 8 sets back in the day, but we haven't seen him since 1995, so I guess it's because he died in this shipwreck. You can't see him from the outside of the set, but if we go to page 226 of the instructions, we see that he died somewhere underneath the ship, and even lost his leg too. He was probably too stubborn to give up hunting Captain Redbeard, but someone else was also too stubborn to give up, and they turned up dead in the shipwreck set in Aqua Raiders. Before that though, you need to know that the main plotline of this theme was that these divers were hunting treasure in the Bermuda Triangle, which is absolutely psychotic, but whatever. And when they found treasure, it usually came with deadly sea creatures or dead bodies, and this is exactly what happened here. Down at the bottom of the ocean is a skeleton wearing a gold chrome crown, which leaves us with 2 likely scenarios. Number 1, this is a former king that went missing ages ago and valued treasure so much that he'd rather die than leave its side. Or number 2, this is a pirate who found treasure, was so happy that he put on the crown, because they always do that, and would rather die than leave the treasure's side. Either way, whoever this was clearly valued money more than their own life. The underwater themes actually have a lot more skeletons than I thought, especially when it comes to Aqua Raiders, because 2 of these guys have shown up dead in different themes, and one of them got killed by a giant squid in the Aqua Base Invasion set. The skeleton in this set has the Aqua Raiders logo on their helmet, so we know for sure it's one of these divers. But at some point, he ran into this giant squid and got eaten alive. You can see them in the top part of the squid, and this is actually where its digestive tract is in real life. LEGO made this death eerily accurate to the real world, and if you didn't notice the skeleton in there on the box, it was a crazy jump scare in the instructions. You put him in there on page 35, and a few pages later, you build an eyeball, which probably made you realize what was going on. This is definitely one of the more brutal deaths in LEGO, but I said earlier that there were 2 of these divers, so where's the second one? Well, he's actually dead at the portal that leads to the lost city of Atlantis. This set is obviously in the Atlantis theme, but this diver has been sitting here a lot longer than you might realize. Aqua Raiders was introduced and retired in 2007, and the Portal of Atlantis set came out in 2010, so this diver has been here for 3 whole years. Unlike the other guy, we have absolutely no idea how this diver died, but if nothing else, it pretty much confirms that the portal to Atlantis is in the Bermuda Triangle, which is a pretty cool piece of lore. Since these skeletons only have their helmets, there's no way to know which divers they are in particular, but at least we know they're from Aqua Raiders, because the skeleton in the Sunken Treasure Mission set only leads to dead ends. This set is actually a 3-in-1, and this diver ends up dead in 2 different positions. For one of them, they found a vault with treasure in it, and for the other one, they got stuck trying to do some photography. But the issue here is that there isn't a single minifigure that matches what this skeleton is wearing. The most defining feature are the flippers in dark turquoise, and this is the only diver that wears these exact flippers. But the helmet and air tank aren't the right color, so it can't be them. Every other skeleton in this video could at least be traced to a handful of possibilities, but this one is a complete mystery. However, there's still one more underwater skeleton I want to show you, and it's in the Deep Sea Explorer Submarine set. This one is in the exploration sub-theme of Lego City, and just like the skeleton in Barracuda Bay, you can't see them from the outside, but once you find them, it tells you the same story of greed like the one with the golden crown. You can find them on page 24 with a sword and a yellow gem in their hands, and their missing leg is on the opposite side of the cave. Seeing as how there are sharks down here, it probably means that this leg got bitten off by one of them, and somehow that still wasn't enough to make this guy let go of his precious gemstone. As for their identity, the way they're wearing their hat leads to a pretty crazy theory, because the only other minifig who wears it like this is the captain of the skeleton ship from the castle theme. There's barely any lore on this guy online, but maybe he was plundering a ship, went down with it, lost a leg, and died. It's pretty far-fetched, but you'd be surprised how many skeletons there are in Lego Castle. There's one in the dungeon set with a very distinct helmet, but to understand what's going on here, you need a bit of castle lore. There were a lot of different evil factions in Castle, like the Fright Knights, the Shadow Knights, and the Dragon Knights, and even though they wear the same helmet as this skeleton, it actually can't be any of them. Each evil faction had a rivalry with a different good faction, and since this dungeon set is in the first Knights Kingdom sub-theme, their rivalry was with the Bull Knights. Now, most of the knights from this faction didn't wear helmets like this, but we can still find out who this skeleton is by piecing together a few different things. The other minifigure in the dungeon set is a man named John of Maine, but he was partners with a man named Richard the Strong, and he was guarding treasure in set 6094 from a robber wearing the exact same helmet as the skeleton. This robber, as the websites call him, is a bull knight, and you can tell by the breastplate. He's also the only evil minifigure in this sub-theme that wears this helmet, so this is without a doubt the skeleton in the dungeon set. The websites not calling him a bull knight made this the most difficult skeleton to backtrack in this whole video, but the one in the Halloween add-on pack is a lot easier to figure out. Since this is just a fun pack, I didn't read into it like I did with the others, but I'm still pretty sure I know who this is. Lego made this pack for Halloween, so they could have easily made the witch hat black, but they specifically made it blue, the same color Magisto wears. Magisto was the first minifigure with a real name, so I think Lego was quietly referencing him with this hat, but fun time is over, because the skeleton in the Temple of Resurrection set from Ninjago died a pretty horrible death. This is the same place where Lord Garmadon was reborn, and considering all the lore around it in the TV show, it makes sense why there's a dead ninja here. The sons of Garmadon were able to reduce the royal palace to ruins, and after that, it became very clear that this temple was a shrine to darkness. The ninja who was unlucky enough to die here is stuck forever inside this cave, and just like the one from the Deep Sea Explorer set, they're also missing a leg. You can find it on the other side of the cave with an emerald attached to it, and since this ninja is impossible to identify, maybe this gemstone is a piece of lore that I don't know about that can help to identify them. So if that's true, let me know in the comments. But remember earlier when I said the diver that got eaten alive by a giant squid was super brutal? Well, the one in the Volcano Island set is 1,000 times worse. This skeleton is wearing a conquistador helmet, which I'll come back to later. But if you look at the promo pic for this set, you realize this skeleton could have only died in one place, the inside of the volcano. This is an absolutely terrible way to go out. But on page 15 of the instructions, we find out it was all for a play feature. The only minifigures this could be are soldiers from either the red or green Imperial armadas, and we can't even be sure of which one because the feather on the green soldier could have easily just burned to ashes. This exact skeleton shows up in 2 more sets. One of them is the Skeleton Crew set, and there's pretty much nothing going on here. But the other one is in the Pirates Perilous Pitfall set, and this skeleton is here to show just how perilous this pitfall really is. In the promo pic, the skeleton is hanging off of one of the masts, but in the instructions, it's actually hidden under some leaves off the side of the base plate. The main play features of this set all have to do with traps. One of them is a trap door that drops you into a prison, and the other one is a boulder that comes rolling down like in Indiana Jones. We can't be too sure how this conquistador skeleton died, but what we do know is that he was part of the Red Armada. But I can't end the video without showing you guys skeletons with confirmed identities, so I have 2 for you, and they're both in the Adventurers theme. This theme is absolutely loaded with lore and skeletons, but LEGO actually confirmed the identity of 2 skeletons themselves, and one of them is Pharaoh Hotep. Hotep played a pretty big part in Adventurers lore, and his real body first showed up in the Temple of Anubis set. He was only in 4 other sets, but after he died, his skeleton showed up in 2. In both sets, someone was trying to steal something from him, or he himself, like what Dr. Kilroy did in set 2995. But someone else tried to steal something from Hotep, and they're actually the second skeleton in the Adventurers theme. This is Sam Sinister, otherwise known as Baron von Baron, and he was always trying to steal Hotep's red ruby. This was Hotep's prized possession, and Sam was actually able to steal it. But in return, Hotep haunted his house, and that's where the haunted house set comes into play. This is Baron von Baron's actual house, and the name of the set ties straight into the lore of Adventurers. Now, I will say, LEGO did say there's no way to know for sure if this is Sam Sinister, but if they're gonna point it out in the instructions, then they're just trying to steer us off course. This is definitely Baron von Baron. Clearly, named minifigs like this have a lot of lore, and another one is actually Snake Rattler from LEGO City. This guy can easily be identified by his eye patch and cowboy hat, and thanks to the lore from the LEGO City Adventurers video game and TV show, we actually know a little bit about him. He usually likes to work alone, or sometimes with Daisy Kaboom, who he has a thing for, but in official sets, they haven't been seen together yet. We saw him for the first time in the helicopter chase set from 2020, where he and an unknown prisoner were stealing a truck full of diamonds. Heists are what he does best, but according to LEGO, he finally got caught by the police. You see, LEGO actually tells us mini stories in their promo pics for these sets. And if we look at what's going on in the prisoner transport set, we see that he's the criminal the police are transporting. However, Clara the criminal is there to rescue him, and she's actually able to break the cell off the back of the truck, but it ends with both of them getting caught. These 2 sets came out a year apart, so Snake was on the run for a pretty long time. But now I have to address something. Criminals are quite literally always escaping prison in LEGO City. I have no idea how they do it, but it's gonna come up a lot in this video. It's a big gap in the lore, so just treat it like inmates are breaking out of Arkham Asylum in Batman. Sometime after he got arrested with Clara, he broke out, and the next time we saw him was in the Marin Square set. This area is supposed to be a peaceful part of town, but the mayor's house is here, and Snake wanted to rob him. In this picture, we see him on his motorcycle with a window attached to a grappling hook. And this is actually the window to the mayor's house. The one on the right side is missing, and there's a golden trophy behind it, so this is definitely what Snake was after. But it looks like he also might have gotten the key to the city? Maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't know what else this key would be for. Even though he did this in the middle of town, he was actually able to escape, but he had to start laying low. A year later, he shows up with a mustache and green overalls, but this time, he's trying to break someone out of a prisoner transport truck. But not just anyone. The same unnamed prisoner from the first set. I guess she dyed her hair or something, but they have the same prisoner number, so it's definitely her. It seems like Snake was posing as an egg farmer to get close to the truck, but the police identified him pretty quick and easily arrested him because he was on a tractor. There's clearly something going on between these two, even though he likes Daisy Kaboom. And funnily enough, she's actually the criminal for case number 2. Daisy has 2 minifigures in real life, and both of them are in different police station sets. But she actually got booked in the first set she came in, so let's break down what's going on here. Her goal at this station was to free prisoners 50380 and 86753, and since she can make explosives out of literally anything, it would be pretty easy for her to do. All her friends had to do was be on the left side of the prison at the right time, and they were. Daisy actually managed to break everyone out, but they all ended up getting cuffed and put back in jail anyway. It probably didn't help that the guy tried to steal from the police chief before he left, or that Daisy stopped to play ping pong with her good friend Duke Detain. But just like Snake, she somehow broke out, and we didn't see her again for 2 years. She popped back up at a different police station set with the same goal, a prison break. But this time, she was trying to free the chef, and her plan was a lot more thought out. Instead of riding in a car with her name on the license plate, she stole a garbage truck and put on a really good disguise. Then she completely removed a wall with the arms on the garbage truck and freed the chef for a second before they just got arrested again. Her story is a lot shorter than Snake's, but case number 3 is actually someone I already mentioned, Clara the Criminal. Her story starts in the Elite Police Boat Transport set, and I actually can't figure out what she did here that was illegal. She was following a treasure map and ended up on a beach somewhere in Lego City. She actually found the treasure too, but then Duke Detain pulled up and tried to arrest her. It's probably just because she was already on the run or something, but Duke actually wasn't able to get her here. She got away on her raft, and the next time we saw her was a set I already talked about, when she tried to free Snake Rattler from the transport truck. As we already know, she got caught, and unfortunately, so far, it's the end of the road for her. Which leads us to case number 4. Big Betty. Betty is described as being a little more sensitive than her criminal friends, but that doesn't stop her from committing crimes. I also just have to say, she's called Big Betty because she's fat, and Lego gave her a double chin on her headpiece. Genuinely crazy stuff. But regardless, she's known for driving monster trucks, and her first set was a monster truck heist on a local bank. It was pretty straightforward. Drive the monster truck into the bank, magnetize the safe to the giant magnet on the truck, and deal with opening it later. It's a pretty good plan, assuming you can actually get away, which her and her friend did. She must have gotten pretty rich off of it too, because we didn't see her again for 2 years, and when we did, she was back for another heist, but this one was bigger. She partnered up with some pretty big names in Lego City, Vito and Hacksaw Hank, and they had a very elaborate plan. They'd been scouting the bank with a fake cleaner's truck that had a bunch of tech and a jackhammer inside, and the plan was to jackhammer the wall on the side, pull it out with a tow hook, then get in and get out. Hank was also flying some sort of drone helicopter thing that could hold some bags of cash. That way, everyone could split up and make it harder for the cops to catch them once they stole the money. But unfortunately, the job was just too big. They all got arrested, but we have our next 2 cases right here. Case number 5, Vito. He's had 3 minifigures in real life, and even though he looks like he has aura, he's actually kind of a loser. Vito was a bully when he was a kid, which is what led him down the path to being a criminal, but he's not even a good one. He's been caught red-handed in every set he appears in. The first one was in the highway arrest set, and like the name says, he got arrested. Vito had robbed someone and was trying to get away in his car when Duke Detain pulled up and somehow got the better of him. However, this is where that breaking out like Arkham Asylum thing from before comes in. This set dropped in January, and the next one Vito's in dropped in August. So if we're gonna treat Lego release dates like real time, that means Vito got arrested, broke out, and arrested again in just 8 months. The second arrest was in the Lighthouse Capture set, where Vito was running from the cops on a raft and ended up at a lighthouse with all of his stolen gems and gold. But the cops tracked him there, and he had nowhere to go, so he got booked. The next escape didn't happen for a while, because he didn't show up until January of 2022 in the set with Big Betty, and we already know what happened there. But this brings us to case number 6, Hacksaw Hank. His real name is actually Henry, and he's the type of criminal that loves coming up with huge plans that usually fail. So that whole fake cleaning truck with the jackhammer and the drone, yeah, that was all him, and he does stuff like this all the time. His first set was the Elite Police Driller Chase, and just from the box art alone, we can already see how crazy this guy is. He built some driller car and used it to rob a bank, but all he took was this tiny little safe. It must not have been very fast since he ended up getting caught, but his next set is way crazier. These dots are a little harder to connect, but somehow he and his friend Frankie Lupelli used a mini-sub to steal a safe from I don't even know where. The cops had this really decked out boat with a radar, a net shooter, and a jet ski, so obviously they caught them. Hank's next big plan was the one with Vito and Betty, but case number 7 is Hank's partner, Frankie Lupelli. On paper, Frankie is the most dangerous criminal Lego City's ever seen. He's been wanted since he was only 2 years old and has committed all sorts of crimes, like bank robberies, prison breaks, jewelry robberies, and way more. But in reality, he's actually a complete coward and is just really good at taking orders, which is why he's committed so many different types of crimes. But his resume in real-life Lego isn't that long. His first set was the helicopter transport, where an unnamed prisoner broke him out of the transport like what happened with Snake. According to his wiki, he was actually able to escape, which led him to his next crime with Hank in the underwater bank heist. Overall, his story is pretty straightforward, but from here on out, none of the minifigures have actual names, so I'll be giving them nicknames to keep things simple. Case number 8, Silverhead. This guy actually just came out in 2024, and he's already got a more in-depth plotline than Frankie. He started out in the crime lab truck, where he was being transported to a new prison when this lady managed to break him out. As we know, these things usually end pretty badly, but Lego had us build his escape route in the set, so we know for sure he got away. Unlike other criminals, he actually tried to lay low by wearing a bandana and living in a hideout instead of an actual house. But the police were able to track him down. And it probably doesn't help that he has a wanted poster of himself at the ladder to his place. The other crook he was living with used the only escape route, which landed Silverhead in his third set, Prison Island. Him and his lady friend from earlier were actually in here together, and I say were because he broke out of this place. Him and this old man had this crazy escape plan where they opened up the sewer and used it to escape on the water. Now, there was a warning for sharks, and we haven't seen him since. So did Silverhead and this old guy make it out? We have no idea. Case number 9, Woodland. This minifigure is from 2018 and has also only been in 3 sets, but unlike everyone else so far, his story is very cohesive. It starts in the River Heist set, where Woodland and another prisoner just blew the biggest heist of their career. They'd stolen an armored truck from the bank with a lot of gold in it, but whoever was driving crashed it into a tree. The cops had been on them the entire time, and while the prisoner was trying to cut down the tree so they could get moving, Woodland was taking money and driving away in another vehicle. We follow him to the Dirt Road Pursuit set, and the only inconsistency here is that the off-roader isn't the same as before, but I'm just gonna take this as Lego wanting to keep the price of the set as low as possible. Not only is Woodland running from the cops, but there's also an Indiana Jones level boulder after him too, which leads us to the Mountain Police Headquarters set. The HQ is pretty small, with only 2 prison cells, but if we look at the minifigures, Woodland isn't here. So where did he go? Well, there was some sort of time skip between this set and the last one, and Woodland is actually now Stumpy. He's wearing a tree as a disguise and has been hiding with what he could keep from the heist. He has a pair of binoculars, so it seems like he's trying to break out the only other prisoner here, who unfortunately doesn't have a known connection with Stumpy. There's also one more criminal in a red helicopter, so this is definitely a full-blown prison break. I want to go back for a second though, because the other prisoner from Stumpy's first set has more going on than it looks like. Case number 10, Screw. The reason I'm calling him Screw is because he kind of got screwed over by Stumpy, and this actually isn't the first time something like this happened to him. He's also in the Mountain Fugitive set, and in this one, he got screwed by this lady. It looks like they were getting some stolen gold from their hiding place when the cops showed up. and instead of helping Screw, the lady used a branch as a raft and paddled away, leaving Screw all by himself. 2 cops are in this set, so there's no way he made it out of there. But not every criminal partnership is like this. Case number 11, Potbelly. This guy is in 3 different sets, and in 2 of them, he's working with this lady, who low-key did him kinda dirty. The 2 of them were hiding together in the Crooks Island set when the cops finally found their hideout. They only had 1 jet ski, and the lady took it, leaving Potbelly to deal with the cops. She completely abandoned him, and he got arrested with ease, but she redeemed herself in the patrol boat set. The cops were keeping Potbelly in a very inhumane cell on this ship, but the lady pulled up on a raft and busted him out with a grappling hook. They made their escape very cleanly, but because of what the lady did to Potbelly, he didn't work with her on his next job. Instead, he worked with this guy, and they actually made some money together. They hid it on this tiny little island, and when the cops pulled up, the old guy didn't leave Potbelly behind. He's actually one of the nicer criminals in Lego City, and he's the subject of case number 12. I'm nicknaming him Beard, and the only other set he's in is the older Prison Island set from 2016. But he wasn't a prisoner. He was freeing his bros. This was probably the hardest prison break yet. The entire place is heavily guarded with boats and helicopters. There are sharks in the water, and obviously it's an island. But Beard pulled up on a raft and got to work. These are the 2 friends he was trying to break out, and they both had very specific strategies. This guy would go down low to Beard's raft, and the only way he could get there was by getting put in solitary confinement. The bed in there has a false bottom and would lead to where Beard was waiting for him. While that was happening, the other guy would ask to go lift weights and get picked up by a hot air balloon that Beard's friend was flying. Now, this may not seem like a good idea since the police have a helicopter. And it wasn't. There's no denying it. For some reason, this guy likes really weird forms of travel, and it's the entire reason he ended up on Prison Island in the first place. For some reason, this guy ran from the cops in a tire in the ocean. This is somehow an even worse plan than anything Hacksaw Hank ever did, and he was known for sticking to plans that failed. So the fact that he ran away in a hot air balloon with a helicopter around doesn't even surprise me. As of right now, this guy is by far the dumbest criminal I've found in Lego City. But this isn't the only theme with a rabbit hole of lore. In Alpha Team, the main villain was a guy named Ogle, and his whole plan was to use things called mind control orbs to turn ordinary Lego town citizens into mindless zombies he called skeleton drones. His endgame was launching a rocket full of these orbs into the atmosphere to enslave every living person on the planet. This was the actual marketed storyline for a toy that was made for 6-year-olds, and it ran for 4 years and got multiple waves of sets. The skeleton drones looked like regular skeletons with a faceplate that felt sort of off. And if that wasn't creepy enough, the name Ogle is just Lego spelled backwards, because he was literally made to represent the complete opposite of everything Lego stands for. But dark storylines weren't just in Alpha Team. Monster Fighters from 2012 had this whole setup where Lord Vampire woke up in his castle inside the monster realm, found 6 magical moonstones, and built a machine that could block out the sun once all 6 moonstones were collected. The catch was that he was already close. The moonstones had been hidden centuries ago specifically to stop this from happening. And now the monster fighters were racing through a swamp marsh, a ghost train, a graveyard, and a crazy scientist's lab just to get them first. For a completely original theme and only 1 wave of sets, the lore goes way deeper than most people realize. And it makes the sets feel a lot more interesting when you actually know what's going on. But nobody committed to a dark concept harder than Hidden Side. The theme wasn't just about ghosts haunting a spooky mansion. The ghosts were possessing people, and it wasn't subtle either. Lots of minifigures in the theme had more than 1 version of themselves, one of their regular selves and one after they'd been possessed. Minifigures like Dwayne, Scott Franz's, Chef Enzo, and others all had a possessed version of themselves. And the craziest part is it was all for a play feature. LEGO literally designed the theme so kids would swap out the minifigs and simulate ghosts possessing people. The sets themselves weren't subtle either. The Newberry Haunted High School set looks completely normal when you first see it, but the entire set can physically transform into a haunted version of itself. It's way creepier than a regular ghost set because it's not a haunted house. The house itself somehow got possessed. And if you think about it in the context of the theme, every single person inside that building while it's transformed is also being possessed. The Shrimp Shack attack set does this same transformation thing, but in a completely different way. The detail that most people miss is the giant shrimp on the front of the building. When you turn it to the side, it starts to reveal these light green pieces that look like teeth. And if you keep transforming the set, you even find an eyeball right below the diner sign. Now, obviously, this doesn't look very creepy. It's more about the lore than anything else, but not everything creepy is in sets that are supposed to be scary. The King's Castle set from 2006 is a very traditional, classic-looking castle set. It even has one of those OG raised base plates, but when you get to the lower section of the castle, there's a skeleton chained to what can only be described as a medieval torture device. There's a skull on the ground, weapons in a barrel, and a mean-looking minifigure with an axe in his hand. I'm not sure if LEGO was telling us that this minifigure is long dead or what, but this isn't even the only set with something like this. Captain Brickbeard's shipwreck hideout is built around this beef between the pirates and the Imperials. The pirates know the Imperials are coming for their loot, so there are booby traps set up all over the hideout. LEGO actually added comics in the instructions showing the two sides fighting each other, so by the time you get to page 38 and start building the captain's desk, you already know what's going on. But on the next page, LEGO tells you to stack 3 skeleton heads on top of each other and place them on that desk. Now, maybe I'm reaching here, but since Brickbeard has booby traps set up, it probably means this isn't the first time soldiers tried to steal from him, and I'm thinking it might not have gone too well for the last ones that tried to rob him. But sometimes LEGO doesn't give us any context at all. The Discovery Station set is from the Divers sub-theme in LEGO Town, where divers use a base on the water and go on expeditions to find things in the ocean. It's a pretty fun idea overall, but on one of those missions, the divers find a skeleton sitting at the bottom of the ocean. There's no lore around it, no explanation anywhere in the set or the instructions, just a dead person on the ocean floor that your divers find by complete accident. And speaking of dead bodies just showing up out of nowhere, the Harry Potter Graveyard Duel set from 2005 has tombstones that physically open up, and when they do, there's a skeleton inside each one. Brickopedia calls one the main grave, which features flowers and a skeleton that jumps out of it. Now, I don't know if it actually jumps out of it like for a play feature, or if it's just a play on words, but some of the creepiest discoveries are in old themes. The Crocodile Cage set is from the Islanders sub-theme in Pirates, and on the surface, it's a pretty standard scene. A pirate is being held prisoner in a cage by an islander, but right outside the cage is a brick-built version of an islander's head mounted on a stick. Without the islander minifigure right next to it, it's honestly a little hard to notice, but Exoforce has something way crazier. If you don't know, Exoforce was an original LEGO theme from 2006 about people piloting mechs to defend their home against a robot army. The Shadow Crawler was one of the robot's mechs, and it came with a prison pod attached to it that had a skeleton inside. LEGO wanted builders to know that the Shadow Crawler was a serious threat, so they put a skeleton inside to show how deadly it really was. But some of the creepiest stuff in LEGO has nothing to do with lore. In Hagrid and Harry's motorcycle ride, Harry Potter's build doesn't really have a face. Because of how big Hagrid is, LEGO was able to give him a lot more details, so he isn't as creepy. But Harry is pretty uncanny valley. LEGO used this really weird triangle piece to represent his face, and all they printed on it were his glasses and his scar. Even though they're the most important details for him, there's no way anyone at LEGO looked at this and thought it wasn't creepy. But there's an even creepier face hiding in CMF Series 29. The trash monster from this series has a green slime head on top, and a lot of people who own it have never actually taken that head off. But if you do, underneath it is a rotting pumpkin head with a decomposing faceplate. And if that wasn't enough, there's a fly printed on a tile that comes with the minifig as an accessory. Brick Fanatics pointed out in their review that this wasn't functional or necessary at all. LEGO just decided to use a rotting pumpkin head to creep people out. But hidden faces aren't just a minifigure thing. In the Ship in a Bottle set from 2018, the display stand has 2 globes, one at each end. They look like regular decorative pieces, but inside each of them is a dark purple minifigure head, completely sealed inside. Once you build the globes, you won't even know they're there, which is why a lot of people don't talk about it online. Obviously, LEGO uses pieces for lots of different things, like the frogs in the bonsai set, but this one just feels weird. However, the Natural History Museum set might have the most try-hard detail in this video. Before you build the upper floors of the museum, there are bones and a sealed dig site built directly into the foundation. You build the museum on top of them and they're covered up forever. It's weird because usually LEGO would have some sort of explanation for this in the instructions, like the one they have for the pottery, where it connects to a completely different set. My guess is these bones were buried by the curator, otherwise known as Dr. Kilroy, because he wanted to leave something for an adventurer to find later down the line. But then there's the Dungeons and Dragons set, which committed to one specific bit harder than anything else. The set includes a gelatinous cube, which, if you don't know D&D, is a transparent cube-shaped monster that dissolves anything it touches. LEGO put one in this set, which is weird enough on its own. But inside the cube, they put a skull, a frying pan, and a gem, all held in place by skeleton arms. The cube isn't just floating there, it's actively dissolving things inside of it, one of which was a very unlucky minifigure. But nothing on this list is anywhere close to what LEGO did in the Jurassic Park T-Rex Rampage set. The set is famous on its own for being a goated recreation of the iconic gates. But inside the maintenance shed behind those gates, there's a dismembered arm in between a metal grate. And that arm belongs to Ray Arnold, who famously loses his arm to a raptor in the movie. LEGO even put a red 1x1 tile on the stump of his arm to represent blood, which they hardly ever do. The set also has Ray Arnold's full minifigure, which means his figure and his severed arm are in the same set, which is the only time in LEGO history that a character and their own detached body part have appeared together. The designer of the set, Mark Stafford, confirmed the whole thing in an interview and described it as slightly outside of LEGO's normal bounds, which might be the biggest understatement I've ever heard. And while we're talking about sets based on movies, the 2016 Death Star has a fully functional hidden platform underneath the floor. The Dianaga, which is the monster in the trash compactor from A New Hope, is hidden down there. There's a hole in the floor just big enough for its eye to push up above it, just like it did in the movie. And for a movie with not a lot of creepy stuff, LEGO somehow managed to take one of the only ones and recreate the creepiest thing about it. But it's nothing compared to what they did in the Hocus Pocus set. This set is based on the movie from the 90s, and there's a scene where 2 bullies get trapped inside cages by the Sanderson sisters. In the actual movie, both of them are alive when this happens. It's not a death scene, it's just part of the story. But in the LEGO set, when you build those cages, there are skeletons inside of them. So LEGO's version of this scene implies that the bullies have been in those cages long enough to completely decompose. Okay, maybe that's not exactly what they're saying, and they were just trying to be funny, but it still makes for a creepy detail. However, there's something insane in Bionicle that a lot of people completely forgot about. Prydak is one of the Baraki warriors, and LEGO's official description for him says he's the deadliest and most ruthless of the Baraki warlords, who rules through fear. The Bionicle theme was always built around war, conflict, and battles, but when LEGO made the figures, that violence was usually shown through weapons and fake fighting. But Prydak broke that pattern. Someone on Reddit noticed that his weapons look like they're blood-stained. Like I said, even though the lore for Bionicle is pretty dark, LEGO usually sticks to their family-friendly code, but Prydak and Ray Arnold's arm are the complete opposite. But the creepiest discovery in this video might be this last one, and it's not from a horror theme, a licensed one, or even a villain set. Set 3314 is technically a soccer set from LEGO Town called Police Unit. It comes with a transport vehicle for officers and a second truck that has a cage on the back specifically for prisoners. It has 4 minifigures total, and one of them is just named Hooligan. In the promo picture, the police are chasing this hooligan around and look like they want to throw him in the back of that truck. Obviously, nothing about this is creepy, but if you think about it, this means that the police of LEGO Town are fully equipped to deal with riots and have a way to control crowds. Something like that can get pretty dark pretty quick, so honestly, I'm surprised LEGO even hinted at it with this set. But which one of these creeped you out the most? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.